You mean the law firms that we're going after, that went after me for 4 years, ruthlessly, violently, illegally? You mean, are those the law firms you're talking about?
Why is Trump attacking big law firms? Back in 2017, when Trump first took office, big law firms gave thousands of hours of pro bono work, free work that makes the firm look good, to stymie some of Trump's policies that were a bit unjust, like the travel ban. When he got back into office, it looks like he wanted some payback. February 25th, 2025, Trump's first target was a firm called Covington and Burling through his executive order to suspend security clearances from their firm. Covington provided legal services to Jack Smith. Sounds like a made-up name, but he was appointed special counsel by Attorney General Garland, and they criminally prosecuted Trump for his attempt to overthrow the 2020 election and refusing to return classified material that was at Mar-a-Lago. March 6, 2025, Trump's second target was a big law firm called Perkins Coie, who did work for Hillary Clinton in 2016. The executive order sanctioning Perkins describes former lawyers working for Clinton's campaign hiring Fusion GPS, a research and strategic intelligence firm for businesses and political campaigns. And they helped investigate Trump, and it led to the reveal between Trump and Russia colluding, allegedly. The executive order claims that the sanctions are because of national security reasons and discriminatory hiring practices under diversity, equity, and inclusion. The next target on March 14th was another major big law firm, Paul, Weiss. The comma is very important for some reason. The executive order accused Paul Weiss of undermining judicial process because the firm's pro bono work and definition of public interest leaned a bit to left. Also, Mark Pomerantz, who's a partner at Paul Weiss, worked with the Manhattan District Attorney on Trump's hush money trials, where he was convicted of committing 34 felonies. This gets way more juicy, but we'll get back to that in a bit. On March 17th, the U.S. Employment Opportunity Commission, the EEOC, the chair of this department sent letters to 20 law firms requesting information on their DEI employment practices. Again, this was part of Trump's wider agenda to end DEI practices. On March 22nd, Trump came out with another executive order for the Justice Department to flag law firms with frivolous lawsuits against him. It seems like he wants to stop law firms from suing him. Interesting. Now, let's go back to the Paul, Weiss, is very important, drama. The firm's chair, Brad Karp, who is the pinnacle of big law lawyer. He looks like the archetype. Now, about a week after Paul Weiss was singled out by Trump, Brad Karp capitulated to Trump. The firm ultimately offered $40 million in pro bono legal services to Trump, agreed to eliminate DEI considerations from their firm's policies, and shortly after, Trump reversed his executive order singling out Paul Weiss. Many big law lawyers hated Paul Weiss for folding, but Brad Karp was in a tough spot. Large clients like Apollo were threatening to leave the firm, and other firms were aggressively trying to take advantage of this and poach their clients. And really, as the chair of the firm, he's trying to please all the partners and act in the best interest of the firm. And I'm sure not all the partners were in agreement. I heard from some sources that corporate partners, they wanted to yield to Trump to save the clients, while litigation partners wanted to fight. We have to remember that law firms ultimately exist to generate profit. It's a business. But it'd be interesting if they lost more business than they would have lost by having the firm kiss the ring. Now, the reason why big law firms and associates were so angry is because there was a sort of solid front. It was kind of like a picket line, except some firms folded too. DLA Piper and Greenberg Traurig, who limited their equity groups. But the others stood strong. In fact, Perkins, one of the first law firms attacked, wrote a statement that they filed legal action on March 11th, and they called the executive order an unlawful attack, a violation of constitutional rights for all Americans to select counsel of their choice without fear of retribution or punishment from the government. Williams and Connolly is helping Perkins in their fight, and W&C have a reputation of being absolute killers in the courtroom. But putting issues of DEI and whatever Paul Weiss did or the pro bono stuff, there's a bipartisan issue at the core of this. There's an attack on the rule of law. Trump's retaliation against law firms seems to be deeper than a personal vendetta. He seems to be trying to stop the biggest law firms from going after him. He's asserting that his authority is beyond the law. It's an attack on the rule of law. The legal system is not whatever Trump wants it to be.
The first thing we do, let's kill all the lawyers.
This originates from a Shakespeare play, Henry VI. It's spoken by a character, Dick the Butcher, a follower of the rebel Jack Cade, who's leading a populist uprising against the established order in England. Sounds familiar? Jack Cade's rebellion is depicted as chaotic, dangerous, and driven by ignorance and violence. Dick the Butcher's proposal to kill all the lawyers is a part of an imagined utopia where Cade's faction can seize power unopposed. Lawyers, as protectors of legal norms and the rights of individuals, are going to be the first obstacle to authoritarian rule. Am I being dramatic here? Maybe. I am quoting Shakespeare after all. But don't most warnings sound dramatic until they actually happen? If I went back in time to 2009 and warned you that the star of The Apprentice will become president, be impeached twice, lose a second term, and have his followers attack the Capitol building, have an assassination attempt, and become president again, you would think I'm being a bit dramatic. Okay, let's look at the substance of these executive orders. Trump and his team have discovered that calling diversity hiring practices unconstitutional is a tidy legal frame and a decent political one. After all, if you label DEI efforts as illegal, racial, or ideological preferences, suddenly you're not punishing law firms for past disloyalties, like, representing enemies of the state in that Little Russia thing or the 2020 elections litigation. What you're actually doing is protecting America from diversity, which is apparently a national security risk now. This approach isn't just about retaliation, although that is the fun part. It's also about ideology, rather the weaponization of ideology dressed up as legal theory. Trump doesn't hate lawyers per se. He employs many of them, but he prefers them obedient, preferably on retainer, and ideally unwilling to ask too many questions about venue shopping or the precise meaning of fraud. The modern elite big law firms with their fussy ethical rules, insistence on legal neutrality, and the occasional defense of Trump's political enemies is, for Trump, an ideological cartel. And so we arrive at the real tension. It's not just DEI versus anti-DEI, but it's rule of law versus loyalty oaths disguised as legal policy. In practice, this is an attack not just on law firms, but on judicial independence. The idea that lawyers represent people and not causes. One interesting response from a big law associate was from Rachel Cohen, a Harvard grad, resigning from Skadden Arps in protest. She's taking a stand for her beliefs, and she sent this long email to all her colleagues putting in her notice, and it elaborated all of the reasons why she's doing this, opposing authoritarian regimes and trying to reinforce the rule of law. And it's courageous. I mean, I saw the email is a bit wordy and got to cut her some slack. She's a transactional associate. It's the thought that counts. It was a brave move. And she was ultimately right that Paul Weiss was just the beginning. Skadden took some flack from Elon Musk recently. But on the large scale of things, in order for things to change, associates are pretty fungible in the law firm business model. And it would really hurt firms and motivate firms more if in-house lawyers and corporate clients would hold firms more accountable in this fight. Not everybody takes the defense of democracy or the rule of law or the independence of the legal profession to be some sacred duty of a big law lawyer. Of course, some aren't in the financial position to risk it all. Others are indeed worshiping the almighty dollar amorally. Some truly believe that Trump is doing the right thing. And others can't sacrifice professional success for their moral commitments. There's a bunch of moral positions to take here. So what can we learn from all this? I'm not going to give you some leftist analysis on the rule of law and how it's challenged by authoritarian regimes because I have hours to bill. But you should take a look at that. Will do. There's also a question about the function of big law firms in the justice system and its relationship to the realities of capitalism and maximizing profit. But the world is changing way too fast, and every day we have some event that'll likely be the subject of some humanities PhD dissertation, and I'm just tired. So let's see what happens next.
I can do any kind of deal. I'm a fucking great lawyer. And I was like, maybe I'll just leave. Maybe I'll go to K&E and tell them to fuck off.